Welcome to episode number 4 of the Fiscally Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gardner, CEO and co-founder of Hiline. Excited to welcome Jeff Seibert, founder and CEO of Digits, to the pod this week. Jeff and Digits are doing some really awesome stuff with AI in the finance and accounting space. We got some really cool things to cover. I'm excited to jump right in. Okay, Jeff, welcome to the pod, man. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, so excited to be here. Thank you, Matt. This is great.
All right. So let me just kind of get into it, man. So for everybody out there, can you just give us your background? Where have you been? Where have you worked? Kind of what's the origin story behind Digits and what you do today?
Yes, I'm Jeff Seibert. I'm the founder and CEO of Digits. My whole life has been software. I did not grow up in the accounting or finance industry. I grew up in the sort of programming world. I taught myself C when I was 12 and very quickly just fell in love with building tools that saved people time. And so Digits is actually my third company. I started a document collaboration business back in 2007, building tools to help you mark up and comment on files in your browser. We got acquired by Box. I built a mobile developer platform called Crash Litic starting in 2011 to help app developers solve bugs in their products. We ended up getting acquired by Twitter. At Twitter, I was named head of product in 2015. And that journey really is what introduced me to the challenge we're trying to address at Digits, which is the huge difference from the sort of experience of the business owner in what they see from the accounting world today and what they see from the rest of the data about their business. If you're building a web product or an e-commerce thing, you can see exactly who's buying as they're buying it, what's in the shopping cart, who's clicking on your website, what your servers are doing. All that data is real time. It's live, it's visual, it's intuitive. And then you go and wait for the books at the end of the month and you're waiting off in 2 to 3 weeks to get your financials. 30 days.
30 days.
And so, yeah, from the business owner's perspective, I'm like, isn't that crazy? That seems crazy. Why don't we go try to solve that?
Yeah. So you've seen some stuff. You've been at some big companies. You've been at some scale companies. And, I have to imagine your experience at some of those other startups and scale companies is so different than what you're seeing as you kind of just get ingrained into the accounting industry. So if you could articulate, like when you step back and you assess the current state of accounting, there's lots of different pockets of the industry that I think need to be refined, but how would you describe? What's your take on it today?
Yeah. I mean, it is a lot of really smart people putting in a lot of time and effort and energy. So all of the intent is there. The way I would describe it is I think there's just a disconnect in expectation. And that is often caused by the software and sort of deeper issues. Yeah. And I actually saw this at Twitter. So it's not just the broader accounting industry, it's corporate finance throughout. When I was leading product at Twitter, the broader consumer org was like 450 people. And I wanted to plan an on-site event for them. I went to corporate finance. I was like, what's the budget for this event for Q1? And the literal answer I got back was, oh, we haven't run those books yet. Give us 3 weeks. And I'm like, you have 100 people in Twitter corporate finance. What are you doing? And should I run this on-site or not? And so that really crystallized in it for me. Like it wasn't just pockets of the industry. There felt like there was a deeper issue at stake. And when you look at the business owner, their naive perspective, because they don't understand all the work involved. They're like, I moved money, I made money, I paid money, I have expenses. You've had all month to look at this. Why is it taking another?
What are you doing? What am I paying?
Right, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yes, we've all heard
Exactly.
that. So was it that moment where you decided to start Digits? Was that the inspiration moment? How did you actually get things started?
That pretty much was the moment. And that reminded me of our journey at Crash Litic. And of course, I had a similar experience with our external accountant. And it was like, okay, this isn't just specific to us. This like Twitter sees this. I talked with other founders and business owners. They all had the same thing. I was like, okay, there's something up here. What's going on? And as we fell down the rabbit hole of the space, what I quickly realized is it's a fundamental issue in how the banks work, how the credit cards work, how the accounting software works. And you're spending all of this energy, all this manpower, basically trying to recreate a record of money that already moved. And I'll tell you, I fell all the way down the rabbit hole because you're like, so wait, why is my bank statement? You get the date, you get the amount, and everything else is crushed into this little description string in the middle. And then you're trying to pick apart what that meant and where the money went and why and so on. And it goes all the way to the ACH spec from the late 60s, early 70s. And that is why the information is compressed as it is. You get 26 characters and that's it. And so that's how deep the rabbit
That
hole
is,
we fell.
wow, you went all the way down the rabbit hole. So accounting by definition is literally the recording of history, right? That is the purpose that it serves. And
Yep.
if you believe in Warren Buffett, he would say that accounting is the language of business, which I, as an accounting and finance nerd, I believe that, right? It tells you everything you need to know there if you know how to
Totally.
read it. So
Yep.
why is it feel like it's 30 years behind the times? There's a couple industries. I would put like legal in that category, probably like engineering in that category. Why has it been enabled and why has it been tolerated for so long?
Y- No, it is 100% true. And I think it is because the software is literally 30 years old.
Yep.
And so you look at QuickBooks, the dominant player, they have 80% market share in the US for small business accounting. And they've held that since 1992.
Wow.
And you look at the bank mainframes, they were written in the 70s. And a lot of these banks are still using those mainframes. And so it's not a lie. The industry is decades old
Yeah.
and the core components are decades old and really need to start to be reinvented and rewritten.
Do you think it's like a perfect mashup of the technology is old? I have to imagine, once you get to be so big, to rebuild the infrastructure to do it a different way has to be vastly expensive. And would
Yep.
you only do that if your consumer actually wanted you to do it? Meaning, would you go do it without strong conviction that it's important to the account? Do you think is that why it's still the same way?
Yes, I think there is a massive innovator's dilemma. And so they have this large installed market, right? This isn't just Intuit with QuickBooks. This is also the banks. They have many thousands, tens of thousands of customers. They're using the bank. The bank is, quote, working, right?
Mhm.
It would be a disaster to go and rewrite it. And I think you might have seen all the hype and hubbub about the Sonos app.
Yes.
They decided to go rewrite their app. And that was a huge mistake, right? You never go and
Yeah, I
rewrite
was
something.
pissed. But in my backyard, I have Sonos everywhere. And we were like
Yep.
hanging by the pool and I couldn't get it to work. I was like, it was very
Right.
frustrating to me. I'm like,
And so imagine a bank did that and they were like, oh, actually, the bank doesn't work anymore. We messed that
yeah,
rewrite up.
it's down for a month. Good luck.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's the level of difficulty it is to really fix the space.
So you're behind a little bit on innovation, right? Like infrastructure isn't there. So then you talk about what Digits is doing. And I know you have a deep belief around how AI can transform accounting. And I want to talk about like how maybe we have done a disservice to the small business ecosystem by not being better. We'll get there. But how do you think about AI? Like how should we be thinking about what AI can do for accounting with modern technology?
Yeah, it can really start to be transformative. And I want to give some context because there's a lot of hype in the space and a lot of startups being like, oh, we're doing AI bookkeeping. And they aren't really. They're taking your credit card statement and sending it to ChatGPT.
Yes.
And so as you think about the broader industry and the opportunity with technology, it's really the sort of history of machine learning. And so we actually started building and working on machine learning algorithms at Digits 5 years ago, way before this whole AI hype wave. And the concept is instead of telling a computer what to do, which is how traditional software has always been built, machine learning worked by telling the computer what you hope to achieve. And these algorithms really quickly iterate through their training process and basically try to optimize for that goal state.
Mhm.
And as you have enough training data and enough work on these machine learning models, they will eventually achieve that goal state. And so that was the unlock I saw when we started Digits. It was like, okay, I think there's an opportunity for a new approach to accounting that is built from the ground up to leverage this modern technology. I will say we got completely lucky with the hype around AI, with the launch of GPT-3 and the whole unlock of these large language models, because they do take it to the next level. But the core tech has been improving and existing for half a decade or more already.
So was it your first go? Did you worked with AI previously?
This was not the first go. It wasn't in so many words. And so the fun thing is with Crash Litic, we were classifying crashes as they came in
Mhm.
from phones. And so there's a bug in an app on a phone. We get a data dump. We have to identify what that is and then effectively book it to one of your issues. The underlying tech there is thematically quite similar. And then at Twitter, obviously Facebook and Twitter were some of the first to pioneer the use of machine learning in the real world. Your algorithm, your feed is a ranked algorithm based on what the models think is interesting to you. And so I got to see how those were trained and developed and put into production at Twitter. And so putting those pieces together, I was like, this is actually an interesting space. Classifying transactions, booking them into a chart of accounts, conceptually similar to classifying crashes and booking them to one of your open bug reports or issues.
Okay, so everybody knows what Twitter is. I don't know if everybody knows what Crash Litic is. So give
Yep.
credibility to like this man and your team, because a lot of your team at Digits, they came from Crash Litic, correct?
It is the original Crash Litic team
The
by
original
and
team.
large.
And how many phones is Crash Litic on today by your best guess?
Today Crash Litic is on 6 billion MAU.
6 billion.
So effectively every active smartphone on Earth. And it does trillions of events a month. The scope and scale of this is just truly unbelievable. As a quick backstory, I started this in 2011. We were acquired by Twitter in 2013. In 2017, Google bought it from Twitter, one of the few things Twitter has ever sold. And Crashlytics is now baked into Google's developer platform. It's effectively the de facto crash reporter for Android. It's market dominant on iOS. And so it is how app developers globally understand what is going on with their apps.
Wow. 6 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. And you got the whole team with you. Pretty much it did.
And so we have the team. And so our team has seen the scale. By contrast, the accounting data is almost child's play, right? A typical small business will do from 100 to 10,000 transactions a month, not a billion plus a day. And so we can spend a lot more energy in the models on identifying exactly what is up with that transaction and putting it in the right place. And just to take this to a higher level, the goal we're working on is basically automating the bookkeeping. We believe there's a clear path to automate 90% of the bookkeeping labor. There's no path to automate 100%. There will always be human accountants. Obviously, it's very tricky. There's complex edge cases. There's decisions you have to make. But we want to get rid of the 90% tedium that you sort of have to slog through every month.
Yes. And so that's a good tip. So when you think about the small business ecosystem, let's say there's roughly 31 million small businesses out there. There's a lot of sole proprietors, but there's also, call it 5 million small businesses between, say, 5 and 50. And there's millions of businesses that are lower end of the mid-market. So with accounting, because you're basically applying principles, technology principles that you've seen use cases for in more modernized industries, and you're applying those same principles to the accounting space. So what, like the impact for a small business to have a platform like Digits, can you paint the picture for what good looks like in your eyes? Like what should everybody just expect table stakes?
Yeah. I think the huge unlock is one particular thing. So the accounting industry broadly, and your team in particular, is really good at getting the business owner perfectly accurate books within days to a couple weeks of the month ending. What I believe AI unlocks is directionally correct information day of or within days. And you can do that sort of as approaching real time. And so again, the AI is never going to be perfect. It's not going to be 100%. But if you can give the business owner a dashboard that's 90% accurate, 90% of the time, and they don't have to wait, they can make real decisions. And so as I talk with founders and friends who've started companies, like all they're looking for is directionally correct information in the moment, so they know what decision to make to optimize their business. Should they hire another person? Should they buy another truck? Should they invest in this? Or what is happening with this customer? That's the sort of active operational decisions they want to make in the middle of the month as they're running the business.
So I'm a bit of an accidental account, right? I appreciate the value of a balance sheet, P&L. I understand where they have purpose, but because you're right now, like you're serving clients because you're just trying to get some reps on your platform, or you're trying to learn, which is great. And I think you're hearing the same thing as me, which is those are really the things that matter to small businesses, like a P&L, a balance sheet, and like nobody knows how to read them. So what do you think they care most about? It's the things on the dashboard that Digits has made available.
Yep,
Real time.
exactly. That's the power of modern platforms like this. You can compute some of those KPIs that the business owner really cares about as the business is running. And so Obviously, what's their cash position? That's pretty easy.
Yep.
But what's their burn rate? What's their runway? What's their income? You start visualizing these metrics, and they don't have to learn to read a P&L, which most business owners can't. They can just see the graph and they can see how it's trending. And that can inform how they think about their business and the decisions they make through the day.
Yes, I'm 100. And, there's some cool things that, they could also do on the dashboard. Like you can kind of query the dashboard, right? Like you could ask it for insights. I think that's one of
Yes.
the key unlocks for AI in your platform was it used to be because the small business owner didn't understand how to really read financials. 99 out of 100 don't understand, which means they're relying upon you to provide them those insights. And sometimes an accountant thinks like an accountant. So like the articulation of the explanation sometimes is to account me. And it doesn't add
Yep.
a ton of value to the business owner because they're thinking in pure business context. So
Yep.
what does that look like? What are they able to do in the reporting dashboard?
Yeah. So one of the cool things we've built is what we call Ask Digits. It is a chatbot. I know chatbots are overhyped. The cool thing about Ask Digits is that it actually has direct, secure, encrypted access to your full books and can answer questions accurately. And so the reason I make a big deal of this is you may know ChatGPT cannot do math. If you ask it a non-trivial math question, it just makes up an answer. And if you give it a P&L and ask it to analyze the P&L, it makes up the answer. When you want questions about your business, you need to know that the math is accurate. And so one of the big things we did at Digits is we paired the sort of LLM, the conversational AI, with an actual financial modeling engine. And it has direct access through that engine to accurately look up stuff and compute things over your books. And so you can ask it how my marketing spend or advertising spend has trended over the past 12 months. And it tells you, and it shows you a graph, and the graph is accurate. And if you want to keep tracking that, you don't need to ask the chatbot again the next day. You just drag that graph into your dashboard. And so it's really easy to just build a custom finance dashboard for you, your leadership team, whoever it might be. And you can see exactly what you want when you log in without having to ask anyone, wait for anything. It's just continually updated.
Which is awesome. So I think, for me and for a company, like I think about that and I think about what do we get paid for as
Mhm.
professionals? We get paid for knowledge, we get paid for
Yep.
insights, and we get paid for strategy.
Yep.
You need knowledge and insights to be able to perform strategy. There's a lot of time that gets spent on knowledge work. And there's a lot
Yep.
of time that gets spent on insights, gathering insights, communicating insights that
Yep.
technology should make easier. Like it should start to commoditize that a little bit and make it more table stakes. So that is what I think everybody should expect at a good value. And I think it enables companies like us, like tremendous scale, because we can now use those insights, communicate them, work with our clients, and also start to work on strategy and helping them make better decisions. And you can now focus on it because the work itself takes less time. There's more value in the relationship. It doesn't mean maybe your contract's going to be cheaper, but it means there's a better value extraction for your client to do it the right way. So I think about it as like a design of a whole new service layer, like very different than what I think most accountants, finance professionals have thought that their job was. I think that it's going to force them to think differently about what that service layer looks like and where humans have a role and where they need to use technology. And I think it's going to require a ton of upskilling and probably provide more fulfilling work for younger aspiring accountants too, because they can actually now come in, maybe like skip over the grunt work and start to do more fulfilling advisory strategic work. And they can just see a lot more. So I think it is awesome in 100%. That should be what the small business ecosystem should expect moving forward.
And that's exactly the vision we see. And that's why we're so aligned. As you're a junior accountant, as you're coming into the industry, there's this perception that it's a lot of just rote tedium and you'll be working long hours doing sort of the relatively boring work. And it's only the senior people who get to have the really exciting and interesting conversations, advising clients and so on. That whole process, the challenge is you spend so much time on the knowledge and on even calculating the insights before you can use them that you lack the time to really think through them and work through the strategy and how that should impact the business. When you think about AI technology, you do not want to take business strategy advice from ChatGPT, right? It doesn't know the context of your business, your industry, all of that detail. But computers are really good at math. And so let the computers aggregate all the knowledge, analyze the data, tell you the insights of what changed, what's interesting, what's different, what you should pay attention to. And then Your team goes and takes that to the client and has a really engaging conversation and has that relationship.
And on the front of what I think what accountants typically expect or care about, right? So you're in this, you're like the interesting dynamic. I think this is the innovator's dilemma, maybe, but you have a thesis as a business operator of what information and data is most useful for you. There's a service layer required for you to communicate that value to businesses. Like you can go direct to them, but oftentimes you're going to need somebody to help facilitate getting
Yep.
maximum value from the software. Do you find that the accounting profession still feels like you need P&L and a perfect balance sheet, and that's what people care about? And do you think the blocker for them still? Are you seeing movement on that front? Like, let's ask your client what they care more about. Knowing you have to produce those things at certain times, but time to value in better real time, like business data, is what matters most.
You are exactly correct. And I still see this problem across the industry. It is amazing how many accountants and firms are like, yep, we deliver our clients the P&L balance sheet and cash flows every month, and that's what they get. And I have never talked with a business owner where you hand them the P&L and they're like, yes, that is what I've been waiting for, right? Like they know what they want. They know what input they're looking for, and they don't want to have to do the work to translate it from this sort of traditional P&L format. They want someone like your team doing that translation for them and telling them the actionable insights. That's the huge unlock. The space needs to evolve their mindset past sort of the traditional practices into more of a consultative advisory relationship with these clients.
So we're very aligned strategically, right? So I'm excited about our partnership. I'm excited about what you guys are building. We are rolling Digit's dashboard out for all of our clients for the first of the year. So there's more to come on that. So stay tuned if you are listening. But like, why do you think no one else has figured this out yet? What has been the blocker for nobody else to try to solve for this very obvious problem? Like you can't resist the flow of the river. This was coming. This was going to happen. It was
Yep.
going to evolve. Why hasn't it happened?
It takes just a long time to build. We have been building heads down for 5 years, over 5 years now. And as you said, we're just able to start rolling it out to folks come the new year. It is a massive engineering project to recreate a lot of these primitives that allow the AI to do its work and to come up with interesting insights, because accounting has a high bar. And so you've probably seen there are tons of AI tools out there. They'll write emails for you. They'll try to identify sales prospects. They'll do all sorts of stuff. And the bar there is pretty low, right? If the AI does a decent job, you're like, ah, good job. Okay, that's sort of helpful, right? That's not the case in accounting. The AI can't just give it an old college try and see what you think, right? The numbers need to be accurate, and it needs to have a really good understanding of the data in order to make that so, and a huge training set. And so I think there are relatively few companies on the planet right now that have the training set, that have the engineering talent, that have put the time in to sort of build all the pieces you need to bring this together.
Right on. How much data have you used to train your models to get that level of accuracy that you're describing? Like how much goes into that?
Yeah. So it is just a vast scale. So our training set, we've collected over 700 billion worth of real small business transactions. And
Dollar
so
amounts, 700
dollar
trillion
value.
dollars
Yeah.
worth
Yeah. Yeah.
of data.
Yeah. 700 billion in dollar value, all real transactions. And this allows the models to just train on this vast set of real financial activity. And it's all double entry transactions, right? Full understanding of the charts of accounts and the vendors, customers involved, everything you want to see, because it needs to build what's really a semantic understanding of the business's finance.
Yeah.
And as you're aware, no two businesses are the same, even at the smallest small business level. Everyone's a little snowflake. And so that's the next challenge, is having that AI understand this vast training set, but be able to apply it to each unique business in a very accurate way. And that takes a lot of work and infrastructure. We have over 1.5 million lines of code in production. This is not
Wow.
something you just stand up in a couple weeks.
700 billion. It's like a meaningful percentage of GDP, right?
Right, right,
$700
exactly.
billion worth of transactions. That's insane. So like, what's the team like, man? Like this is your second go. You guys have been at this for how long is it? Five plus years?
Yep, 5+ years, 6 years now. Yep.
So, and how many people on the team?
So we just hit 55. We stayed relatively small throughout. And so we started this year at 35. and it was all heads down engineering. So of the 35, 21 were full-time software engineers.
Yeah.
We have a few product managers, a few designers. We obviously have a couple folks sort of in operational and marketing roles and so on. But it's been a huge R&D engineering effort. And these engineers, many of them, as you said, I've worked with for over a decade now. We built the original Crash Litic together. We have folks from Twitter. We have folks from Google, folks from SAP. We've collected a massive amount of talent from the industry. And that's what it sort of takes to build something like this.
And what's the vibe in the team? Is this like a deep passion for everybody to figure out how to do this?
It is. Engineers really love hard problems, and we have found a hard problem. And so I will have to say the first 2 years, great. We were super excited. Years 3 to 4, little challenging because you're like, man, we are still going down the rabbit hole and it's still not working. And we don't even know if there's still light at the end of the tunnel and so on. And then year 5, it turned around. We could see where it was all coming together. And this year has been magical. Everyone is super, super excited. It's all coming together. It's working. We're trialing it with obviously real customers. We'll be rolling it out with your folks soon. So it's just an amazing time.
So it's like the business building side of it, right? So what was Crash Litic at its peak in terms of the number of team members you had?
So smaller. When we were acquired by Twitter, we were only 18.
18.
And that was a very fast journey. We went from founding to acquisition in 14 months.
Oh, wow.
So that was very quick. That was a rocket ship of a different variety. The product did one thing very well, and that was it.
That was it. And then how many people did you oversee at Twitter?
The Crash Litic and sort of broader team got up to about 100. Then on the consumer side, I ran the product team, which was 35, but sort of you feel responsibility for the broader consumer org, and that was about 450.
450. And now 55. So you said like the first couple of years are fun. So what made the first couple of years fun? Then we're going to talk about the third and fourth year.
Every new engineering project, every new startup, I just think is a blast. It's a whirlwind because you're diving into an industry. And to be totally candid, we had no background in finance or accounting.
Yep.
We actually, after we raised money, we went to UCLA and hired their professor of introductory accounting to give our whole team a private class. And that is how we started getting into it. I read multiple accounting textbooks front to back. We really needed to understand the whole space. And so those first 2 years are discovery. It's like you're uncovering all the history of what happened in the industry, how the data is structured, what we can build, all this brainstorming and ideas. So yeah, the early years, I think, of any business or startup are super fun.
So they're the best. Yeah, they're the best. I agree with that. So your third and fourth year, what made those harder? If you're willing to share, you don't have to share, but if you're willing to share.
Oh no, for sure. It was, we at that point fully understood the depth of the problem.
Yep.
And it was overwhelming, right? Like we were making little steps towards it, but you just see, oh, okay, we got that transaction right. And all of these clearly wrong. And it's, what do we do? And how do we keep improving the models and the whole system and the architecture? We ended up completely rewriting our backend, I think in year 3 to 4.
Yep.
This might be a little bit technical, but most products are built on sort of traditional databases. You might be familiar with SQL databases.
Mm-hmm.
These are relational databases that hold the data. We had gone down that path, as basically everyone does, and realized that accounting is not fundamentally relational. You have to do so many joins. We were doing 14 joins per dashboard component that the site was just so slow. It was painful to use. And so we spent a solid 6 to 9 months rewriting our own backend data store from scratch.
Wow.
And it's custom built. And we now serve our dashboard page in 100 milliseconds.
I've seen.
And so like that was a massive unlock.
So now you're year 5. So now you're through the hard years. So that you've kind of got the platform basically built to spec. You feel like you got what you need. And now where are we going? If you want to talk like the future of accounting, so you like a crystal ball, you know what you can do now. What should the future of accounting look like in 5 years?
Yeah. So our goal and our sort of North Star is we want to automate 90% of the bookkeeping process, of the month-end close process. And from what we've seen so far, we believe that's totally achievable. We are very close to that on the core bookkeeping, basically getting transactions in and booked into the ledger. But as you know, there's a lot of other pieces. You need to reconcile the accounts. You need to review stuff for anomalies. You need to compile the insights and so on. And so we are starting to apply our energy to those other steps of the close process.
Mhm.
And that's what the next few years will look like, is fill in the gaps where it's not just the initial booking that's automated, but it's the whole sort of monthly close process that we can again cut 90% of the tedium from and allow your team to be super fast. Use the AI, review the accounts, you see what's missing, what's good to go, finalize it. And now you can really focus on the client and what they want from you.
Yeah. What about the technology? I have no doubt the technology will be there in 5 years, right? What
Yep.
before that? Definitely before that. What else about the ecosystem needs to be modernized to keep up with the technology?
Yeah, the really good question. As you know, I think the industry is going through a huge talent crisis in attracting younger talent, the next generation. I think that's going to be really determinative on like how the industry scales and sort of continues to play its impactful role. I believe this technology will help with that because it'll make the field more attractive to folks who don't want to spend their whole day doing math and coding transactions and so on. And so I think that's a big, almost marketing effort that the industry needs to take on, is how do we reposition accounting away from the pure record keeping and more towards the trusted business advisor, which is the job that the business owner actually wants you to play.
Yeah. So if somebody, so CPA, right? So 9 years in public accounting, very resilient person. Like if I commit to it,
Yeah.
I'm it. I'm going to do it until
Yep.
I can't do it anymore. So I took the CPA exam and I don't think it's changed much. It's probably changed a little bit, but they test you on the knowledge.
Yep.
They test you on the ability to take insights out of the data. So in terms of thinking about how to like the industry to get ready for this, right? If the technology, well, Google basically made the knowledge available to everybody, right? That was even before digits. So knowledge was strike that was available to the world. Not always right,
Yeah.
but enough of it to be dangerous.
Yep.
Insights, those are going away with it. How can the accounting profession think about building the right skills and telling the right story? Because for me, I remember being in college, going to accounting classes. Man, I made a mistake. This was a mistake. And because it wasn't that compelling at the time. I just didn't think I would
Mhm.
love the work. And I did love the work. But what you can do now on top of technology, like you can be entrepreneurial, you can have business spirit, you can be really curious, you can accelerate your career so quickly. So, shouldn't we be real time thinking about all of this stuff needs to be rethought and pretty quickly because I feel like it's already passed us by and we're still telling the same
Yep.
story.
Yep. This is the next calculator moment, right? When calculators came out, math education totally switched and math testing totally switched. You were no longer testing students on whether they could do long division. It's nice to know how to do long division, but that's not actually core to the role anymore because you can just type it into the calculator.
Yep.
And I think this is the next transition. The exam will need to change. The coursework does need to change into more of let the computer again do the analysis and surface the data. It's entirely about how you interpret it, why it was booked that way, what decisions went into it, what shape of the business that implies they should optimize for, and so on. And so I do think there will need to be a mindset transition
Mhm.
for the industry.
Yep. In a good way. That's like right now, talent crisis, right? I talk about it all the time. There's like an article that comes out every day about the talent crisis.
Yeah.
The ability to work with AI this way within your career, your job function, there's not a lot like engineering, like software engineering. You can basically 10x, if you know how to use the tools right, you can create like, maybe not a 10x employee, but you have a
Yeah.
higher probability of becoming a 10x employee now because
Yep.
of technology. Why can't you
100%.
become a 10x accountant?
I think that's exactly the mindset because I completely reject the notion you're going to be replaced. You're not. It's the field is too complex, requires too much expertise, requires the judgment to make these strategy calls. I think the mindset 100% should be I will be the next 10x accountant
Yep.
because I know how to leverage these tools.
Yep. And then, so we talked about the technology, we talked about counting, and then you got like the end user of your platform in my service. Like the small business owner, the venture backed startup, the nonprofit, like all of these 31 million companies out there, how should they be thinking about preparing themselves for just ingesting this part of their business in a different way? Because it's probably the scariest part of running the business for many of them.
This is so true and such a good point. What has really struck me as I've learned the industry is accounting, finance, no matter what scale of business, is fundamentally a collaborative process,
Mhm.
right? You have the business owner, you have their leadership team, you have maybe their finance person internally, you have the external firm, you have the tax people, you have all of these people around the business,
Mhm.
and they want to work together. They want to collaborate. They're all motivated to help the business succeed. And yet the traditional accounting software is all these single player experiences, right? Nobody wants their client in QuickBooks because you can't see what they're doing if they happen to change something or break something. They don't understand it. They don't know how to get value from it. It's this very awkward middle ground where like it's this collaborative process built on single player software.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the next big unlocks. And how we've started to design digits with our dashboards is we welcome both the expert accountant and the business owner into the same view, into the same product, and empower them to comment back and forth and have the appropriate controls so the business owner can't accidentally change something and unbalance the books and so on. But you can still allow them to get the insight out together and see the shared value of helping the business grow.
Yeah. So the whole ecosystem needs to have a growth mindset right now because
Yes,
the
exactly.
way everybody works together is going to change. I think you just articulated it really well. And another point on the professional service, it's not just accountant, but professional service providers have historically obviously been paid for their knowledge, like how much they know. You got to let it go. Like you can't guard your knowledge. You can't keep it with you. You got to push it back into the system and make it available to everybody else. And I think that's how you're going to build great companies in the future. Okay. So podcast is called Fiscally Awesome, right? So I'm
Yes.
going to put you on the spot. How is Digits going to make small business owners more fiscally awesome 3 years from now?
Yes, this is the huge unlock. And honestly, this is what I wanted when I was building Crash Litic and my prior companies, because I had a rough sense. I could see how much money we had in the bank, but I didn't really know where it was going on a month by month basis or even more fine grained than that. I think the visibility is huge. Communicating the data in a way you can understand naturally makes you make smarter decisions. The next thing I'll say is allowing and sort of delegating access to that information.
Yeah.
So what we've found to be really powerful is nobody's able to invite their leadership team into QuickBooks, right? If you hire a head of marketing, you don't want them in QuickBooks because then they'll see payroll and whatever else you consider sensitive,
Yes.
but they can't see the marketing budget. Why not? This is crazy, right? And so if you continue this collaborative mindset, we've built Digits so you can take your marketing spend and just share that widget with your head of marketing. There's no longer any excuse for them to be over budget because they see it in real time as it
Yep.
happens. And so you don't need controls in your business. You need visibility because the vast majority of people are highly motivated and aligned in making the business successful. They just lack the context to make the right decision.
Yeah.
If you bring them that context, they're super empowered.
Yep. I think that's well said. If I could say it in layman's terms, I think it's going to make finance and accounting way less scary for everybody.
Yes,
Simply, you're going to
totally.
simplify it. You're going to make it easier to understand. And it's just shocking to me that it's taken this long for us to make it
There,
for small businesses.
there's an analog I'll share on the design side.
Yeah.
And so for those who remember Photoshop, right? Photoshop,
Oh my
incredibly
God.
powerful.
Blast from the past, Photoshop.
Yeah, right? Incredibly powerful, incredibly complex. Even Photoshop experts only knew 30 some percent of its features and what it could do. There was always this tension with engineers, with product managers on like the designers had Photoshop, but you couldn't be there with them. You couldn't use it. You couldn't get access to it. It was very expensive. Now this company Figma has come along and just taken over the market
Just be,
because it made design collaborative, right? And you can be on your browser in the Figma file with your designer or marketing person, and you can see what they're doing and give them pointers in real time. Completely changes the design process.
yep. Okay.
And so
Digits is,
imagine Figma for finance.
yeah, Digits is the next Figma. You heard it here. Gee. Okay, man. So, in one last question for you. So, people listening, your story is super compelling and awesome, right? Crash Litic, Twitter, Digits, basically reinventing the entire accounting space. A lot of people listening say, I want to be like Jeff, right? He seems like he's loving life. He's having fun. He's building great companies. From all your learnings over the years of building companies and running companies, like piece of advice, something that you kind of go back to as your North Star, something to leave everybody with to maybe help them think about what it takes to run a business and maybe help them skip a misstep down the road.
Yeah. Really great question. I'll give you two pieces of advice that sort of struck me. And so on the side, I angel invest. I've angel invested in 100 different companies. I'm very immersed in the sort of Silicon Valley tech world.
Yep.
So this advice might be more for sort of startup founders than a traditional small business. But what has struck me is I see a lot of founders make the same two mistakes. And if you look at accelerators like Y Combinator, they're cranking out hundreds of startups every quarter,
Yep.
right? It's just a mass factory of startups. Most of them will fail. The vast majority will fail. And so if you're looking to start something, I would take an extreme view on usability, on what your customer really wants, and don't compromise that with what's possible today. Just radically pursue, obsessively pursue what you believe the customer actually wants. And this feeds into my second point, which is go deep on the solution. There's so many founders who start a business, they cobble together something okay, and they pretend that's their product. I think what really defines great businesses is they just go down the rabbit hole as
Yes.
far as it keeps going, and they figure out the root source and they solve it from there. And what you wind up with is a vastly stronger product, a huge competitive moat, because not everyone's going to do that,
Yep.
a much stronger product in the end. And so it's really about how serious you are about your company. If you are obsessed with this is going to be the next big thing, you need to put in the work on both those angles to guarantee you've made the next big thing.
I love that. And it holds true for every company. We're a services company. And I can tell you, I am deep down the rabbit hole in how to build a differentiated accounting business that can be scaled. So no
Yep.
matter what you're out there trying to start, you got to be willing to go deep and go all in if you really want to build something that's different, better than everybody else. It takes
Could
time.
not agree more.
Man, Jeff, I feel like we're going to have you back on soon to talk more
I
about
love it.
digits and where you're
Sounds
going in
good.
the future. But I appreciate your time, man. You got some awesome perspective on accounting in the industry, where we're going. And thanks for being on. And we'll talk to you soon.
Matt, thank you so much. This was fantastic.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya.